The Vermonter hit a ledge and derailed right here in Northfield. The engine's in the river. There are several cars hanging off the tracks. There were 98 passengers on board and 4 crew members for a total of 102 people. 7 have been transported for medical care, 6 to central Vermont, and 1 passenger was removed by Dart helicopter to Hanover, Dartmouth-Hitchcock. Everyone else walked out. I've just been meeting with the passengers, and it's really a remarkable thing to hear. It was a pretty brutal derailment caused by ledge on the track, and as one of the passengers said to me, someone was looking out for us because we walked out of a very, very difficult situation. EMS and the fire department, emergency management, were on the scene almost immediately. It took them about 15 minutes to get there. We had buses waiting, and at this point we are either offering passengers hotel rooms or busing them south where they were headed. The salvage operation will begin as soon as we can. As you can imagine, ties are torn up. There is some diesel fuel in the river, and it's going to take some time for us to be able to clear away the tracks and rebuild them. New England Central Rail owns the line and is responsible for maintaining the line. The passengers, many passengers, have told me to thank the Amtrak team, the hardworking crew on the train who have been extraordinary, as well as a deep thanks to the folks who responded. Our first responders, fire and EMC, the Orange County Sheriff's Department, Paul White and his team from Vermont State Police, hazmat, everyone has done extraordinary work so far. Needless to say, as governor, I know I join Vermonters in expressing my relief that no one has died. We had a terrible train derailment back in 1984 where we did lose lives. We are hopeful that those that are receiving medical care right now will make speedy recoveries, and obviously we're hoping our prayers are with all of them. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. I want to emphasize that at least based upon the immediate knowledge that we have, there's no belief that there was any wrongdoing here. A freight train went through late last night. It passed without any incident, so the ledges had to have fallen in the last several hours. We all know that ledges can move. They can fall onto highways, they can fall onto rail tracks, but there's no reason to believe that this was a problem led to by poor track construction. This particular track was reconstructed when we received the ERA money several years ago to upgrade our train tracks. The speed limit in that area is 59 miles an hour. Many passengers said to me, I want you to know this was not an issue of conductor or someone driving too quickly. It was a matter of ledge that landed in the track, an act of nature, really beyond the control of anyone who was conducting the train or running the train or maintaining the tracks. So we'd be happy to take questions if you have them.
Salvage operation is not to be closed for really 2 days. Walk us through that at all?
Sure. So what we're going to do is Amtrak will continue to run the Vermonter, but the Vermonter will go to Springfield, Massachusetts, and folks will be bused back and forth to Springfield, Mass. Until the tracks can be cleared and rebuilt. So that will be the procedure going forward.
Do you know the identity of the one transported to Dartmouth?
We do, but we're not going to comment on the identity of the person being transported to Dartmouth until their family members have been notified. As you can imagine, that's the person that we're most concerned about right now. Well, you know, we're just not going to comment on their medical condition because we simply don't know. As you can imagine, they just got to Dartmouth 2.5 hours ago. They're in a great hospital. Our thoughts and prayers are with that individual, but we just don't have a medical assessment at this time.
How many of the accidents?
I'm not going to answer that because family hasn't been notified, and therefore I can't really comment on who it is.
Governor Selman, how many of the accident victims were airlifted out? How many were taken out by conventional ambulance?
One passenger was airlifted out. Everybody else was moved by ambulance to Central Vermont Hospital. I'm going to let AOT or Joe answer that one. Who wants to take that? Dan? Identify yourself just for the record.
Hi, Dan DeLabriere from VTrans. I'm the rail director for VTrans. New England Central is responsible for doing their own maintenance on that set of track. It's privately owned. There's no, I don't know the exact maintenance schedule, but it's at least a couple times a week where they're going to run through with their inspection crews. But I don't have the data on when their last inspection was, but I do know that a freight train did go through there late last night, and there was no evidence of any ledge slide at that point.
Do you know what time this derailment took place?
Approximately 10:30. I don't have the exact moment, but approximately 10:30.
Do you know sort of the lay of the land? Is it right around a bend? Is there a straightaway? Could brakes have been applied? Do you know any of this yet?
If brakes had been applied, it's likely that wouldn't have stopped you from hitting a ledge. So, when you're traveling at 56, 57, 59 miles an hour, it takes a lot of space to stop a train moving at that speed. Having said that, it was a fairly steep area. If you talk to the passengers, they'll tell you that, one of them said it was unbelievable. There were senior citizens literally bounding up this cliff that the cars fell down, and seemed to do it without any injuries or any hesitation whatsoever. So I got to say, my heart goes out to the passengers and the crew who went through this traumatic experience, and we're very, very lucky that there was no loss of life.
Do we know if brakes were applied, or
we simply don't know that yet.
And so does an investigation get set off now?
We will, not only will we investigate the circumstance that led to this, but we'll also, as soon as we have that information, get it to you. But I just want to emphasize, there's no reason at this time to believe that there was any negligence on anyone's part. Obviously, we don't have all the details, but this track was rebuilt. It was a state-of-the-art track. Ledge slides happen. We take an awful lot of heat from the public when we start blasting ledge on the side of the highways. This is an example of why we do that. And where there's ledge, it can move.
Has there been blasting in that area recently?
Not to our knowledge.
Now, the total number of cars on the train was what, and how many of them left the track?
So 5 went down?
5 are off the track, with 2 that went over the side of the hill, along with the engine. One engine and 1 passenger car are currently over the side of the hill.
So
What was the total train size?
Including the
To-
locomotive?
Five passenger cars, correct?
Yeah,
That's
5
correct.
passenger cars and
5 passengers plus the engine.
yes.
I'm sorry, what's the name of that river?
It is a brook. I don't know.
We
the
call
name
that a
off.
brook in Vermont, but
Yeah,
it's a tributary of the Dog, now named the Amtrak Brook.
there you go.
Is there anybody from Amtrak here right now?
They're on their way.
Can you clarify in the cars? There were 5 cars and 1 locomotive. And the passengers told me that 2 of the locomotive and 1 car were in the trip.
That's correct.
So is the locomotive and the car immediately behind that went over the edge?
That's correct.
That's correct.
But
So
all of them derailed?
5 derailed, 2 landed in a brook. The engine, the locomotive, and 1 of the rail cars.
One that's still on the track?
There was one still on the track.
No, there's more than 1 still on track.
Yes.
There's
The last-
several.
the
last- several.
There's 3 that are still on the track.
There's 3 that are upright that are just
Right.
they're on the tracks, but they're still sitting upright right next to the track.
Right.
How's everybody getting where they need to go?
So we're going to bus folks south. Anyone that wants to stay in a hotel can stay in Vermont, but Amtrak is doing a great job of getting everybody moving. Some of the folks have family members coming to pick them up, as you can imagine. But, they've been through a pretty traumatic experience, but they're doing very, very well.
Is the National Traffic Safety Board, National Transportation Safety Board involved at this point already?
They will be.
That,
They
sure.
will be.
It's the federal government. It takes them a little time.
Okay.
Has the Vermonter crashed previously, derailed previously,
had something more recent than the Montreal or in '84, haven't we?
This is the only one that I can remember as governor where we've had a passenger train derail and injuries have resulted. So the most recent stop was Montpelier, and the next stop would have been White River, right? Randolph.
So this was the Vermonter.
This was the Vermont.
Out of the 102 people, how many were treated for minor injuries?
7. Oh, for minor injuries? I don't know the answer to that.
There were 7 transported. Of the rest, they were all evaluated on scene and declined that they were injured and brought here to Plumley Armory.
Do we know if there are any Vermonters on the train?
Yes, there are definitely Vermonters on the train. Because I just met, we haven't broken it down, but I just got to say the Vermonters and the out-of-staters have been extraordinary. You know, I just spoke with 2 women from California. Plenty of Vermonters there and family members of Vermonters. So, you know, we're just grateful that that there was no loss of life.
Governor, there's been a little bit of discussion about the inadequacies of the upcoming state rail plan in terms of a lack of addressing safety issues. Do you feel this accident and the fact that it was caused by the bedrock sliding out of the track, do you think there'll be a greater focus on safety in the draft, in the rail plan as it's finalized?
Well, you know, I guess I would push back on that a little bit and say we're focused on safety right now. And, you know, the good news is that when, in the depths of the recession, when President Obama made federal money available for transportation infrastructure, Vermont and the Northeast states accepted much of the rail money that some of the governors in other states were turning down for political reasons. And the result is that the Vermonter is going to be a much higher speed rail than it would have been moving from New York City, hopefully to Montreal, with a spur to Boston. That's the vision. But this is an example of a rail track that got rebuilt with federal money. It's state-of-the-art. There's no reason to believe that the rebuilding that rail had anything to do with this accident. This really is an example of a freak of nature where ledge broke up and fell onto the tracks.
So, is someone who's really familiar with that particular area be able to say, was the engineer coming around a corner and that the ledge was right in front of him, and did it completely obscure the track?
So we have not had the opportunity to talk to the engineer yet, so we'd be speculating on the answer to any questions around what went through the engineer's head, what they saw when.
So where can train customers expect to pick up the bus now?
So first of all, Amtrak will contact all passengers that have tickets to communicate with them about any transportation-related issues, but you will still go to your station, your rail station, just as you normally would have. The bus will be there at the same time the train would have been. It'll move you to the next station until we get to Springfield, Mass. We'll get the train back up and running as quickly as we can, so it's back on the tracks, but as you can imagine, we've got a mess down there, and it's going to take us time to clean it up.
So the train won't be running in Vermont area?
The train will not be running past Springfield, Massachusetts until this problem is solved. So if you're heading south, you'll get bus to Springfield, stopping at every train station on the way. If you're heading north, you will get off in Springfield, get on the bus, and stop at every train station along the way.
The engineer among the injured?
I can't comment on that because we haven't been able to notify family. So
Do we know how much rock fell, how much ledge?
it's 5 or 6 really big chunks. Is that
Yes.
a fair way to describe it? And they're big hunks of ledge. The problem with ledge is, as we all know, it's not a particularly stable rock. It cracks. It falls. That's why we have the problems on the highway. You know, going back to the overall tenor of the conversation, let's just remember, when we have a transportation crash, we don't say, let's stop driving cars. We say, how do we make them safer? We will do exactly the same with rail. But let's remember, rail is safe. The Vermonter is a great train line. It's faster than it used to be, and it'll be even faster in the future as Connecticut and Massachusetts are finishing up their upgrades of the line. We literally feel that we'll be cutting an hour off the travel time between the old rail tracks and the new rail tracks, pre-era and post-era money. And rail is important as we fight climate change. So let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater as we face this tragedy.
Just remembering that Montreal was crashed in '84, that was a natural incident that happened overnight after the last train had gone through.
That's right.
Rainstorm.
It was a mudslide.
We talked about sensors and whether there was any way to tell until something that happened, that there was trouble ahead. Are there systems that would detect that, or is it just a witness thing from the freight train?
There's not really anything that's going to detect this kind of thing.
We don't think technology, I bet it will, but we don't think technology has gotten to the point yet where it can really monitor an entire track, or if so, no one's doing it yet that I know of.
Is it correct that this set of tracks will not be equipped with positive train control? That becomes mandatory under the 2008 federal legislation?
You want to take that?
Not right now. It's not.
Excuse me?
It's not.
It's not.
It's not. Well,
It's not
it won't
right now.
be, right? It has an exemption,
It has
correct?
an exemption.
Are there any
Someone
other
did their homework around here.
areas along the Vermonter line that have demolition of ledge pending, or
You know, I can assure you of this. We will be certain that we work with our federal partners to look into the current stability of ledge along the tracks, because we don't want to go through this a second time. And we all make a huge effort, spend huge federal dollars blasting ledge on our highways. We should be doing the same on our rail tracks.
That rock looked awfully soft, and there was no netting. You know how you see the netting?
Yeah.
On? Can you comment on that? I mean,
Well,
the engineer did a great
we
job.
will review the ledge situation along all the tracks, for sure. You'd have to have a pretty big net to grab those rocks. They were
You know
big.
what I'm talking
Yeah,
about,
the
net
screening.
security.
Yeah,
did you see it?
I've seen pictures of it.
So they'll bring in what, cranes?
So we'll bring in cranes on the track to try and move the cars. We've got to obviously deal with the diesel fuel in the brook, and then we're going to have to rebuild the track itself where it was damaged. So this is not a 24-hour turnaround. It's going to take us some time.
You know how much fuel spilled?
Undetermined at this time.
Governor, who do we speak to about getting down south?
Come again?
Who do we speak to get down south?
Oh, we'll take care of you. We're here to help. We can get you south. We don't understand in Vermont why anyone would want to go south, but we will help you get there.
It's getting cold.
That's the mistake you're making. You got to stick with us.
I have to say your emergency response was brilliant. It really was fantastic.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So, one boss.
Thank you. Where are you from?
Ireland.
Oh, yeah. We're glad you're here in Vermont. We'll get you home safe.
Okay, thank you.
All right, team. Anything else? All good? Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
We're going to get back. We'll get back to you.
Okay. Jim.
Speaking of Congressman Chaffetz, last week on Friday, the Secret Service Director Joe Clancy acknowledged that he was changing his story, his recollection of when he first learned of people inside the agency looking into Congressman Chaffetz's personal information. And is that acceptable to the President? The fact that the Director is now changing his story on